Today, our speaker is Emery Roper. He's a speech language pathologist and clinical leader on our stroke unit, and is going to share some great information on managing cognitive changes after stroke. I heard this presentation not too long ago at our stroke support group. It's fantastic resources for you to continue to follow up on. After Emery, we will have our nurse educator, Jackie Bishop, and she's going to share some information about the upcoming stroke camp that will be coming in the fall. So a great community resource for our stroke survivors.
All right, hello everybody, I'm Emery. I'm a speech therapist, as Allison said, on the stroke unit here at SAI. So I'm going to talk about cognitive changes after a stroke. So talking a little bit about how a stroke can impact your cognition, some strategies and tools to manage those changes, and then just some fun ways and some strategies to keep your brain active and keep your brain active. All right, so first of all, what is cognition? Cognition is most simply the way our brain understands, organizes, and stores information. So all of the mental processes that we use to acquire knowledge and understand our thoughts and our experiences and just go through daily life. So there's a lot of aspects of cognition, but we're going to talk about the big three, which is attention, memory, and executive function. And we're going to break down each of those a little bit because they can be kind of complicated things to understand. So attention, sustained attention is just the ability to focus on a specific task for an extended period of time. So you guys listening to me talk right now, you are using sustained attention. Divided attention is focusing on more than one part of a task or more than one task at a time. So if you were listening to me while doing the dishes and you are effectively doing both, you're using divided attention. And then selective attention is paying attention to important parts of a task while ignoring everything that's not relevant. So if you had the TV on in the background while you're talking to somebody, but you can ignore the TV and keep your attention on the conversation, then you're using selective attention. All right, going into memory. So there's 4 different types of memory that we're going to talk about. Short-term memory is just holding information for a very short amount of time. And it's actually shorter than a lot of people think. It's about 15 to 30 seconds. So if somebody gave you directions to maybe your doctor's appointment, you walk in, you're at the information desk, and they tell you how to get to the office. If you repeat that back to them immediately, that's using your short-term memory. But then working memory is the ability to hold and manipulate what's in your short-term memory. So this is holding on to information just long enough to use it, and then you can wipe it out. We don't really need it after that. So using the same example of getting to the doctor's appointment, you repeated the instructions back using your short-term memory, but now you've got to follow those directions to actually get all the way to the office. So holding the information in your head while you navigate through the building is using your working memory. And then there's prospective memory, which is remembering things that are going to happen. Your doctor tells you when to come back, and you've got to remember to write that down later or then. And then at that later date, you've got to remember to go. And then there's long-term memory, which is anything that happened more than a few minutes ago. And there's a lot of different pieces of this. Most long-term memory is not impacted by a stroke. So remembering how to put on your shoes or remembering your kids' names or where you grew up, all of that really long-term memory is pretty rock solid. But then it can also be something that happened 5 minutes ago. Technically, that is long-term memory. We usually think of it as short-term memory, and that's the part that's normally more impacted. All right, and then the last big piece of cognition we've got is executive function. And I'm going to break this one down a lot because there's several different interrelated skills that go into executive function. And these skills help us just successfully get through daily life. They are very important for learning, working, and functioning. So we're going to talk about 10 different pieces of executive function. We're going to start, let's see, there's my mouse. We're going to start up here with task initiation. So this is the ability to start a task when you need to, even if it's something you really don't want to do. So you know that you've got to get started on your to-do list. Task initiation is what helps you actually get started on it. Organization is the ability to develop and maintain a system that keeps everything organized. This can be your physical materials or plans, and also just keeping your thoughts organized. Working memory, we already talked about. Time management is effectively estimating how long tasks will take and then using your time wisely to complete those tasks. And then planning is breaking down a bigger goal to figure out all of the steps required and in what order to carry them out. More skills in executive function, attention, which we already talked about, self-control. So managing your impulses, managing your reactions, not just acting on the first thought you have because you had it, but taking a minute to think about the situation before you act on it. Flexibility, this is also sometimes referred to as mental flexibility. So the ability to adapt to new situations and deal with change or problems as they occur. So maybe you have a plan, but then it rains. So coming up with an alternative plan on the spot because you did not look at the weather, you didn't know it was going to rain. Perseverance is sticking with a task and not giving up, even when it is hard or boring. And then metacognition is thinking about thinking. So being aware of what you know and what you don't know, and then using that information to help you learn or to help you complete a task. And being able to ask for help if you realize you don't know something. All right, so then just breaking down those three a little bit more into this pyramid, attention is the basis of all of it. So if you have difficulty sustaining attention, either in a quiet environment or when there's distractions, then that's going to impact your working memory and your short-term memory. And then if you have deficits there, that's going to impact your executive function. So attention is the most important piece of the puzzle because it's the foundation of all of the others. All right, that was a lot of information. So now what? What do we do with that? One thing is cognitive rehabilitation. So this typically happens while you're in rehab or in outpatient therapy or home health therapy. So cognitive rehabilitation is direct remediation of those skills that we talked about. Trying to remediate and strengthen the attention, the memory, and the executive function. There's not as much research here on cognitive rehabilitation as there is on physical rehabilitation, but everything has shown that there's no evidence of harm and it's potentially beneficial. And where there is really good evidence is that cognitive rehabilitation is effective for treating attention, which is really important, as we talked about, because it's the basis of all of the others. So a lot of cognitive rehabilitation ideally happens during therapy, but if your speech therapy time ran out, or maybe you didn't realize you were having difficulty with your attention until you got home, there are some therapy apps and different brain training games that you can do at home. So this is one of my favorite apps. Again, a common theme, ideally done with a therapist, but you can do it on your own. This is a free app called TalkPath Therapy. And you can download it for any Apple products, or it's available as on the website too. And so they have different areas of therapeutic tasks for language and cognition. There has been a lot of research done with this app, and it is all good for targeting attention as well. TalkPath News, so this is by the same company. These are short news stories that you can either read or listen to, which is really great for that sustained attention. And then they ask you some comprehension questions at the end, which is good for testing your short-term memory. Lumosity is a pretty popular brain training game. I believe there's a free trial and maybe some limited access to the app for free. Other than that, it's a subscription. There's been limited research on the effectiveness of brain training games, but the research that has been done shows that even if it says it's working things like perception or your math or your memory, typically what it's targeting is your attention. So it may not target what it says it is, but if it's working on attention, that's going to impact the other areas of cognition. Rehab Coach is another one. So you can see in that screenshot that they've got areas on math, language, memory, and perception. Again, they're all going to target attention. Happy Neuron Pro, this is a subscription service, but they do have free handouts that you can print out if you maybe are not an app person or just like to write better than doing things on the computer or phone. So they have a bunch of different areas as well for attention, memory, and executive function. And they're kind of fun. It might give you a code that you've got to decipher or certain things that you have to remember. I think these are fun, but also as a speech therapist, I recognize not everybody finds these fun, but it is good for working on attention and some of those executive functions as well. All right, and then word puzzles. Any type of puzzle that you find in a newspaper, Sudoku, word search, crossword puzzles, those are all great for working on attention. They can help with your mental flexibility or problem solving. There's, like everything else in this field, there's not a ton of research, but it likely will help with your attention, and it's fun and free, so there's no harm in trying it. This screenshot is from an app called Puzzle Page, which is a free app, I believe only for iOS, so Apple products, but it's essentially the newspaper puzzle page in an app. All right, so if you have tried cognitive rehabilitation and it doesn't really seem to be working, or you just want some other strategies, that's where compensatory strategies come into play. So they can be internal or external strategies that just help to compensate for changes in cognition. So internal memory strategies are repetition. So this could be, somebody tells you their name and you repeat it in your head until you think it's stuck in your head. Or if someone gives you instructions and you can repeat them back. It's a really great way just to get that information a little bit deeper into your brain. Visualization is making a mental image of something happening, or you could visualize maybe where you put something so that to help you remember it. Association is linking old information, so information that's in your long-term memory, to new information to help you remember it. So I use this when I introduce myself. I usually give people an association to remember my name. Emory. A lot of people think of Emory University. So that is something that they have known about, and then they link it to my name to help them remember it. Silly rhymes is also a form of association. So some people who don't know Emory University, I'll tell them Emory rhymes with memory. It's silly, but it usually sticks. Categorization is also a form of association. So breaking down information into smaller categories. So if you're going to the grocery store, instead of trying to remember your entire list, you can break it down into produce and dairy products and meat, frozen aisle, and then you can remember the items within those categories instead of just trying to remember the whole list. And then mnemonics might be like blanking on the word, not an abbreviation, but a word that stands for another word. So I always think about my elementary school music class, remembering the letters on the music staff. They taught us every good boy does fine, and that is the notes going up the white spaces, or the lines, I guess, on the music staff. So E, G, B, D, F. I had to break down every good boy does fine. And then I added on meditation and mindfulness practice at the bottom. This can be really helpful for attention. Just learning to ignore thoughts that come into your head, or just notice them and push them away. Can really help with the sustained attention and selective attention. All right, external strategies. So this is anything outside of your own head that helps you remember things or pay attention to things. So we've got sticking to a routine. If you do something at the same time every day, you don't have to remember to do it. You just eventually it becomes rote memory. Having a place for everything. So this person has a basket with their keys and their phone, their wallet, and their sunglasses labeled. So if you come in every day and you put your keys in the keys bucket, then you know that's exactly where they're going to be when you go to look for them. Timers and alarms. These can be really helpful if you've got multiple steps that you need to do to complete a project, or maybe like making dinner, and you need to remember that at 6:30 you've got to put the potatoes in the oven, and then you can set a timer to take them out at 6:50, and then at 7 o'clock you've got to make the salad. You can have a timer go off for each of those steps, or it can just be a timer to remind yourself to go to a doctor's appointment. Reminders app comes on most phones, and that can be used the same way. Another thing I like about the Reminders app is that it can be location based. So once you pull into your doctor's office, if you need to remember to grab your notebook full of questions, you can set it so that once you pull into the parking lot, it'll remind you then. Notes. I never go anywhere without my pad of Post-its in my pocket just to write things down. Some people like to use Post-its, others like to just keep one notebook so that everything is in the same place. The only thing with this is that then you have to remember to look at the notes that you wrote for yourself. Calendars, pretty self-explanatory. This can help with your perspective memory, so remembering things that are going to happen in the future. But it can also help you remember things that happened. You can look back at your calendar and say, oh, that's right, Aunt Susie came to visit in March. Checklists is a great thing for executive function, just kind of breaking down each of the steps that's going to happen and then tracking your progress as you go. And then photos around your house or on your phone can be really helpful if somebody has issues with their long-term memory. It's a good talking piece and just helps to bring back some of those memories. All right, Pillbox Organizer. These are really helpful for obviously remembering medications. There's lots of different ones. Some have 4 or 5 sections per day. Others, like this one, has 3. Others are just 1 per day. And then if that is too complicated, there's also PillPack is through Amazon. I think there's other services like this where you tell them your medications and they will send them to you in a pack. So it's Monday, it's 8 a.m. You grab your 8 a.m. Monday pack and you take everything that's in it. So that takes out the part of having to set up the Pillbox Organizer. All right, finally, these are external strategies for executive function that after a lot of practice can become internal strategies. So we've got 2 different ones that are fairly similar: goal, plan, do, review. And then there's also stop, think, act, review. And that one spells out STAR, so that's a mnemonic. So the stop, think, act, review is more for impulse control. So before just acting on something, you can stop, think it through, and then act, and then review. Okay, how did that go? Did I solve it okay? Did I act okay in the moment? And then goal, plan, do, review is similar, but usually used for more complex tasks. So what is your goal? And then breaking down your goal into your plan. Think about all the steps required and then do it. Carry out your plan and then you can review it. And I like this graphic because the review, you can review back to any step. So if something didn't go well, do you need to revise how you did it, or do you need to revise your plan? Or was the goal wrong? Do you need to go back and revise the whole goal? Other strategies just to help with attention, limit distractions. If you know you're doing something that requires a lot of focus, turn off the TV, go somewhere quiet. If you have a really hard time blocking out external sounds, you could wear noise canceling headphones. Keeping your environment clean can just help limit distractions too. And then give yourself brain breaks. After a stroke, your brain is working really hard to recover and you get tired more easily. So take a break, that's okay, and ask for help. It's important to know what you don't know and what you can't do on your own. So don't feel bad asking for help. This is kind of just summarizing the goal, plan, do, review. So think about your plan, talk about your plan before you follow through with it. Try to brainstorm some activity or some problems that you might encounter and how you might solve them if they come up, and give yourself lots of time to complete tasks. All right. The Stroke Association is a British association that has a really good free PDF that you can download on cognitive problems after a stroke. Talks about everything that I just talked about, but in a little bit more detail, if you can imagine. And then Headway is another great organization that has a lot of free publications as well. It is, I think, designed for traumatic brain injury, but there's a lot of overlap between traumatic and acquired brain injury, which would be a stroke. So they've got documents on memory, attention, executive function. Then they also have some templates for weekly planners. And if you are planning on returning to driving, they also have a checklist for returning to driving. So breaking down all the steps that you would need to do to get back to that.
All right, there's some great strategies and resources in there, and would love for you to take advantage of some of those things. And now I'm going to introduce Jackie Bishop.
I am Jackie Bishop. I am full-time here at Sheltering Arms Institute as one of the nurse educators, but I also still work at VCU Health in the neuroscience ICU. And of course, one of my passions is stroke. So this will be the 4th year that we've held this stroke camp. It's through Retreat and Refresh. I don't know if anybody has heard of them, but they're out of Illinois. And they come to us. We raise about $25,000 each year for them to come to us and put on a camp for stroke patients, stroke caregivers, and volunteers. It's usually about 60 people, so it's 20 volunteers, 20 caregivers, and 20 stroke patients. This year will be September 17th, 18th, and 19th. We hold it in Wakefield, Virginia, at the Airfield Conference Center. It's just, I can't even begin to tell you how rewarding and fun it is. The stroke survivors have time for themselves, and there's groups that they talk about different objects or things that are coming against them. There's time for the caregivers to get together and talk and discuss. We have pampering day, we have campfires, anything and everything just to kind of bond and bring normalcy to them and their day. And we do a lot of drum circles and education if they need education. And I don't even know how to talk highly about it because it's the best thing in the world. Any questions about Stroke Camp or what we do or how it is?
Jackie, how do they go about registering?
Sure. So that's a great question. So if you search Refresh and Retreat Stroke Camp, there's a website that you can go on and register for the camp. It is not open yet. I just checked. I'm still waiting for my flyers too, but I would imagine it'll open probably next week. And unfortunately, it's a first come, first serve. So the first 20 people that get in there are able to apply. It does cost, I think it's $125 per couple, but we do not let them come. If they can't afford it and want to come, we pay the $125 for them.
Great. Do you have a date, which weekend it is?
So it's September 17th, 18th, and 19th. So check-in is on Friday the 17th. Usually about 1 o'clock is when they come. And then we have all day Saturday, and then Sunday afternoon we all leave.
All right, is there any questions from anyone? I know Jackie's been very involved in the stroke camp over the years and speaks highly of the weekend and what comes out of the weekend. So if anyone is interested, please consider exploring that as an option.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that is it for today. If anyone, unless anyone has any other questions, our next stroke community transition event will be held in October. And if you're on our email list, you will receive information about that session. So thank you all very much.